brochure. I am part of the NASA Solar Dynamics Observatory, SDO. SDO is a spacecraft that launched yesterday a year ago. So yesterday we had a big launch anniversary party out of NASA Goddard, which is the outskirts of DC. And SDO observes our sun. That's already amazing because we can't just go out and look up. We will get pretty bad eye damage. But what do we do? Well, we take an image of the sun every second. And that image is 10 times more definition than HD TV. So it's an amazing amount of data that we get each and every day. 1.4 terabytes of data each day. That data gets sent down by the spacecraft to White Sands, where we have two beautiful antennas that capture the data and pretty much send the data straight to Stanford University, where the Joint Science Operations Center is. That means the data gets collected there, processed, and then made available to the science community and the public. So, why are we looking at the sun? I mean, it's there. Well, we want to understand, first of all, how the sun works, why the sun does what it does, and most importantly, we want to learn about space weather. Space weather? There's weather up there? Everybody told me when I was a kid that there's nothing in space besides, you know, some little rocks and gas thingies, and that's about it. No weather. But there is space weather. And space weather has a big impact on life on Earth and life in space. What do I mean by life in space? Well, now, for the last 10 years, we have had a human presence in space continuously. Astronauts on the space station, they are not as protected from all the solar events as we are down here on Earth, because Earth has a magnetosphere that is kind of a protective shield. That is somewhat missing up in the space station. So there's a lot of reasons why we want to study the sun. A big solar event can send radiation towards Earth that can damage other spacecrafts, that can interfere with communications and GPS. Those beautiful auroras and northern lights, they're caused by space weather. And space weather can take out power grids. And imagine if a GPS satellite gets damaged and a power grid goes down. We're so reliable on these items, these GPS and navigation satellites, and power it will be bad. So we want to predict what's happening. Now let me ask you this. On Super Bowl Sunday, we made a big announcement about something very important for us in the solar community. Does anyone know what it was? Okay, one person. What was it?
The first time 360 degrees of view of the sun with stereo and SDO.
This is for the first time in human history we see the entire sun. And that's incredible because, you know, the sun is so far away, over 90 million miles away, but we now can see the entire sun. What's happening on the backside? Yes?
I think this illustrates that maybe it wasn't terribly smart to make that announcement on Super Sunday. People aren't going to pay attention.
Or you don't watch the Super Bowl.
Oh, Camilla reminded me I can't get political. Oh, you have a good point. So anyway, I just wanted to introduce you a little bit of the mission behind Camilla. And now let's talk about social media, and let's focus a little bit about what Camilla does, what SDO does, and then I want to get your input, and I want to get ideas from you, and I want to learn from you, because we need to improve. We can't just sit still, even though NASA is #1 in social media. We have to get better and better and better. So, here's what we did. And I'm not going to go too far back in history, because the funny thing is, when you talk to people about social media at NASA, you get a lot of different stories how it really started. Probably one of the most well-known social media outlets was Phoenix on Mars. Who knows anything about that mission? Did you follow it on social media? Weren't you super sad when the last tweet was sent out from Phoenix and it was like, goodbye and that's it? That was the first time we really captured a huge audience via Twitter. And depending on who you ask, there are different stories on how actually everything started at NASA's social media. There is a story that actually I just learned this morning in the planetary science side that scientists were arguing on Twitter about how to do science. And that's how it started. And I heard that Phoenix was the one that really started it. But no matter what, we're doing a fairly decent job with social media. I always say we have two components to social media. We have the media part, and we also have the social part. And we need to do better on the social part. I'll give you an example. We have a lot of fantastic NASA missions out there that put awesome media content on their Facebook site or on their Twitter site or YouTube or blogs or whatever. But then we, public, we have questions. We ask the questions and we never hear back. Well, that's kind of discouraging because we're not really doing the social part of the whole social media. So when we started at SDO about 3 years ago, the social media part at least, we decided from day one that this is going to be as social as possible. Meaning, you have a question, we want to give you an answer. And not only that, if Camilla sees something funny on your Facebook side or on your Twitter side, she wants to respond too. She wants to get involved in it. And so we decided, let's make little SDO, similar as Phoenix, a spacecraft with personality. So it's first person based. And we decided to take it a step further. We introduced Camilla, the rubber chicken, and SDO. And what we did is we had Camilla visit little SDO, which is about the size of a bus, in the clean room. Now, this rubber chicken is not clean. We had to vacuum pack her, and we had to take her into the clean room. But he made awesome pictures, and that's how we introduced Camilla to the SDO, and they bonded, they became friends. How odd is this? We have a spacecraft that's the best friend with a rubber chicken. Silly, but it worked. And why did it work? Well, it has worked so far because the two communicate with each other. Yesterday, a year ago, SDO was launched out of Kennedy on an Atlas V, one of the most spectacular unmanned launches ever, because after about 70 seconds, you could see the ripples go through the clouds. First of all, there was a sun dog in the sky, which are crystals that are formed, and it looked like the rocket was going towards the sun dog, and then suddenly the rocket broke the barrier of sound, and we saw all these ripples going through the clouds. And there were people that had seen 20 or 30 of those unmanned launches, people that work with ULA. They said they had never seen such a beautiful launch. And of course, we all were totally excited to have our mission be the one that created all this. But anyway, little SDO took off on a rocket, and Camilla was back down here, and she missed her friend, her best friend. He's up there 22,000 miles in an orbit over New Mexico. Little SDO pretty much stays over New Mexico because it needs a direct link down to White Sands where the big antennas are. How else can you get 1.4 terabyte of data down there? There's almost no onboard storage. So the story evolved that Camilla really misses her little buddy, SDO, so she wants to go and visit. But she can't just go and visit, you have to go through training. So we really sat down, we wrote down the storyboard, and we realized, oh my god, this is awesome. Little SDO can interact and educate from space. Camilla can do her part from down on Earth, plus get into the human side of space exploration. So we started talking to a lot of people, and at first everybody was like, a rubber chicken wants to come and visit? So there was a little uncertainty of how successful this would be. But it became really successful because people like Clay Anderson, you'll get to meet him later this afternoon or evening, took Camilla and kind of embraced Camilla in a way that just made everything happen. So Camilla went to JSC for a few days, and she started to get into the human spaceflight side. And she learned how astronauts train. She got behind the scenes, and what we then quickly learned was, we have a girl here, why are we not focusing more on girls and women and get girls more excited in science and engineering and math and technology in general. So we changed our storyboard a little bit, and we said, Camilla wants to get more girls into engineering and science, and she wants to meet women that work in those fields. Women that work behind the scenes, not necessarily all the female astronauts, because we all see them every day, but we want to see and learn about the people behind the curtains that make the space travel what it is, because it's such a huge theme. And so we started going around and meeting women and introducing them to the social media world, and it was successful. And we want to continue doing that. So I'm going to give you just an idea how successful this has been. When we started Facebook about 2.5 years ago, we had no idea that Facebook says if you have a friend page, you can only have 5,000 friends, because nobody on this world has more than 5,000 friends. So we had a friend page, and suddenly we had 5,000 friends. And we're like, oh, what now? So we had to create a fan page. And fans, you can have unlimited amounts of fans. And so we have 5,000 friends, and we have almost 5,000 fans now. The beauty about a fan page is it gives you inside information. You can go onto a link and it shows you how many views you've had in the past 30 days or past week. What demographics do you cater to? You see female-male ratio, you see age groups, you even see the most countries that sign up, most cities, languages, I mean, a ton of information. And so we started to look at this data, and we saw some amazing numbers that we did not expect. So let me ask you this. 30 days, let's take 1 month. How many views do you think little SEO, the spacecraft in space, gets on Facebook? Throw out some numbers.
50,000.
50,000? Okay. 600,000 views. I was mind-boggled. Yesterday at chat, it was 578,000 from it was like January 9th to February 10th. That's amazing. 600,000 views. I was mind-boggled. Now, if you don't compare it to other missions, it's really difficult to get a sense of how do we do compared to other missions. We're now working on getting that data shared between NASA missions, because I think it would be a really good matrix to have. Now, very interesting part is that almost half of the interactions and of the fans are female. That is amazing. And I talked to some of my colleagues over at NASA Ames that work on missions like Kepler, and they have anywhere between 25 to 30% female. We have half. Okay, you can say the sun might be more of an interesting topic to female than male, but we really believe that Camilla makes a big impact. And so here's what we did. We kind of kept Camilla quiet for a couple of weeks to see if that number changes. And sure enough, it drops down to 39%. So we know that Camilla has a positive impact on females. All right, so now let me ask you this. Do you follow any NASA mission on either Twitter or Facebook? Yes?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Yes.
Okay, tell me if you have favorites.
Landsat.
Landsat?
Phoenix, but I'm biased.
Phoenix. That's okay. Hey, I'm biased too. What else?
Epoxy.
Oh, yes, yes. Any others? NASA
Actually,
SEO?
SDO, yeah.
Ah,
That was the first mission I really fully followed too. So I have a special fondness for that.
The rest who are not following one, why are you not following one? Feel free to say you don't like it. It's okay. You don't want to. You don't want to see all your fan pages flooded with space. Yes.
That's all mine is.
Because some of the reasons I don't follow the other missions is because people who's behind the account have no idea what they're doing. And they just put bland stuff out there. They don't interact. They don't personalize it. and they need training on it before NASA says, oh, here's a Twitter account, do this.
Yeah. If it's something I can Google in under 20 seconds any other way, I don't need to put it on my feed. I go to a social networking site to get something quick, easy, and different. And if it's just general information, hey, we did this today. It's been on the schedule for 2 months. I don't want to know that. I want to know that, hey, the guy who did it really likes his Hawaiian shirts on Friday. That's fun. I want that on my Twitter account. And like the picture of the guy who did it. That brings the humility to it. It's social media. It's supposed to have that human side. I don't need the stat sheet being fed out every half hour.
And that's something that we realized. Like I said, we do really awesome media stuff. There's great, I mean, you guys use the NASA website, don't you? Mm-hmm. Can you find your way around that site? You want to find an article, it takes you forever to find something on there. But there's so much information on there. And so many missions take that information and then put it on their social media. And I think that is not the right way to do it. It's a way to do it, but not the most optimal one, because you do exactly that. You're missing out on that social part. Sometimes you want to know what's happening inside the team. Sometimes even the person who does the update. For Camilla, it's really difficult because I am the person behind Camilla, but I don't want to be known for that. Camilla is her own. She has her own opinion and she has her own views, and that's why when we take pictures, people say, come stay in with me, and I always say, no, I don't exist. But if it's about SDO, I think it's so much fun when you also can give a little bit of the inside, and you can show the human side of the mission, because that's as interesting as the data that comes out.
You want to show the inside, the human side, because after all, you're trying to reach the common person sitting in their living room who you need there at, the tax dollars, from the tax dollars to the support. So you need that human.
Now think back. Let's go back 3 years when we didn't do social media. How did we get the information?
I'm trying to think why were you not doing it 3 years ago?
I know, I'm
going back, I've had my Facebook page since like 2004. I had a MySpace in 2001. You had a live journal before that. So the fact that some of the most technological people in the world are 4, 5, 6 years behind a curve, right there you put yourself back.
I don't necessarily think that they're behind. I think it has to do a lot with policy.
Yes,
right?
rules and red tape.
Bureaucracy and red tape.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But I mean, even bureaucracy, you can find ways around it. Like I worked on the Augustine Committee, so I set up the site for that, and there are ways around it. Bureaucracy is only part of the problem. The other one is culture. What in the private sector you consider corporate culture. So
yeah.
I technically am the one who started Facebook pages for all of the accounts. I'm going to tell the really embarrassing story on how it started instead of the story that I tell people in the news articles that they write about. So it was my freshman year of college in fall 2007, and I had just started working on the Mars rovers. I was really excited. I loved, the rovers, the best things ever. And my roommate was like, well, if you like them so much, why don't you, marry them or something? And I was like, Facebook. And so I made a Mars Exploration Rover Facebook account, and I didn't intend for it to be public or anything like that. I just wanted it to say, in a relationship with the Mars rovers next to my name. And it started out just my friends, adding it and whatever, and then it started to be people who were just interested in space. I was like, okay, that's cool. Then I got an ad request from Steve Squires. If you don't know who Steve Squires is, he's the PI of the Mars rovers. And I was like, oh crap. So I, overnight changed it into an actual, had real information. I made sure it said, this is run by and it's not actually NASA, it's my thing. He emailed me and was like, I really like it, let's actually, adopt this. And so, I had people from JPL and their social media, Veronica McGee on Twitter, She's the social media guru at JPL, and she's the one who is in charge of the Twitter accounts. And so I had set up one for the Mars rovers, and then Phoenix. I worked on Phoenix in the control room, and all the pretty pictures that you see, all of the panoramas, all of the color images, from me. So I decided to do Phoenix as a personal account for, you know, it was in a one person, like this was before Pages were even started. I petitioned Facebook to do something like Pages, that it would be easier to interact and get all of the data of what you look at, and sure enough they did it. I don't know if it was just me, but I would like to think so. So, you know, I made a Phoenix page and I would interact, and this is about the time when LRO got on there, like a couple of the big missions at the time, and so we made a spacecraft lunch club. I'm sure the group is still on Facebook somewhere, and we would get online at certain times and actually like talk and interact with the fans, and NASA was kind of leery about this. They're like, we don't know about real-time interaction, that's kind of scary. And you know, we proved that yes, you can have civil, you know, normal discussions with people and get them really interested and get, you know, interest in people out there. So that's why everything has a Facebook page today. So, you know, that's at least how I've seen it evolve. Like, I'm not involved much anymore in the, I guess, day-to-day interactions of it, but when Phoenix was going on, I was constantly updating with the new images of the day, and they would have me send the stats every day to headquarters of how many people were fans, how many page views did we have. And from the day I created it, which is like the third day of the mission, to the end of the mission, you know, 150 sols later, it jumped from, you know, just a handful of people to something like over 100,000 fans. And I mean, this was in 2008, and so now that it's gotten out more, it's totally expanded beyond that. So, there you go. That's the real story. Yes?
I think there's an interesting point here, and to answer the question, or to offer a possible answer to the question of why, you know, technical people are not involved, or not in the forefront here. This was all done by a college freshman. And you look back at the history of this, most of the innovations in social media, indeed many of the innovations in technology over the past generation have come from college-age people. Whereas it takes a little longer than that to become a technical person. And by the time you're old enough to acquire the savvy to be a technical person and have a certain amount of responsibility in a technical organization, you're probably, for whatever reason, just over the hill in terms of the kind of innovation that has led to social media. And your developmental psychologists have all kinds of elegant theories as to why this is so, and who knows, they may be onto something there. But this is just something I think that we have to accept, that as you get wizened and wise, there are a few faculties that you lose over the years, and so you just have to, you know, keep in touch with these people at this particular creative age in their lives. And there will always be a lot there.
I mean, for some of it, I think it's great. Like, and I understand why there would be a gap, and then others, I'm like, you know, these are also the same people that are reading the technical journals and coming up with these new ideas and it's what a college freshman sees as a great idea and a concept and to go with, and it's just like, oh, I can pick this up. The technical person is picking it up and creating a new device or a new methodology, and the common person doesn't distinguish the two. They're going, if you can do that, how come you can't come up with a cool hashtag?
Well,
and then for the when the companies and stuff go back and do it, it's always, they want to know, like she was saying, how many people have visited, how many sites it is, what's your demographic. It's one of those, if you can put that up, it helps you out your technical side, and then kind of feeds into the rest of what everyone else wants to do. Kind of gives your program reason. There's always that monthly staff update or the quarterly review that you're like, oh, I have to prove why I'm doing this again to people that don't know why I'm doing it again and why I need another $500,000. You can be like, because I have 50,000 followers on Facebook that think I'm really cool, and they're the taxpayers that are paying it.
They're two different groups, yeah.
Now, we have a lot of people here that don't really, or let me ask you this, do you work in the space industry? All of you?
Or did.
Or did at some point?
Do
Okay, so
interns count?
from your perspective, what is it that you would like to see in social media more from organizations like NASA and all the missions?
I have to say one thing. When I started doing Twitter and really focusing on it, I've worked at NASA for over 20 years. I know more about all the other programs outside of what I work on now than I ever have. Because I can see that stuff, even if I'm not following that mission, you or someone else tweets about it, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to go check that out. I know, I mean, I always get things on Twitter before I get the official email at work. Let's figure that one out. But I know so much more about just regular other programs that I'm not involved in, which, and certainly, you know, I'm in the older set, you know, we didn't have the ability to, you know, you had to go call somebody on the phone in the past and say, what's your program doing? Because there wasn't that visibility out there. And certainly, you know, we went through the period there, if NASA was succeeding, it was quiet. And if they were failing, then the news cared, you know. So that's my take on that.
Now, would you rather see images or movies or just text? What is your preference?
I'm all images and
Images.
text. I don't really watch online video, like, very much at all.
Really, I will.
I will if it's really short, but I don't like to sit at my computer and watch video for, like, you know, 20
You need to have a
minutes.
really good reason
I like
to
pictures.
create the little
Yes.
short films. Because otherwise, I watch a few hours a week of general stuff online. I don't need another 20-second cool intro that you think was really great. Just show me your 10 seconds of content. Or I like a lot of the text and pictures because most of the stuff I'm doing Facebook and Twitter on my phone. And if I can't get it to work in a few seconds on my phone, I skip.
Back out, yeah. Back.
Just like counterpoint, I'm actually not an engineer and I haven't worked for NASA. I'm new to the space industry, come from investment banking background, and I actually do like videos, and I do watch TED Talks. It's a forum where a lot of different people from different backgrounds will come and talk for 3 to 5, 7 to 15 minutes. And I think it is a very engaging medium if you have the visuals as well as auditory inputs. And having something of a TED Talk type program, maybe it's a couple of minutes, 3 minutes type stuff where people can get up there and talk about programs. It'd be very interesting, very engaging for people outside of engineering and NASA.
And would you, if you had the capability to go online, watch it, and submit your questions right there and then with the chat window on the side, would you
Absolutely.
be engaged?
Absolutely. I mean, I think TED, just so that you know, I'm also currently incubating a social media initiative, which is a for-profit initiative. But you know, the standard things where you can leave your comments and rank them up and down and ask questions and have people answer with this phenomenon. Like, it becomes a repository of information that people can then tag and track and, you know, rank. And
All these things are different. Like, I was getting curious when you were talking about, all the stuff that you say, we have this many males, this many females, this age, this country. I think you start using that to figure out what you want your next part of social media to do.
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people get confused of social media is a tool, and there's multiple tools. Facebook is different than Twitter, which is different than a YouTube channel.
Well, Twitter itself as a tool is different to
so
everybody.
using, like,
Yeah.
if you're putting out little tweets and stuff, I want a little picture and some text. But if you're doing a whole forum content with matched chat, that's not something I'm looking on my phone while I'm on the bus between stops on a campus. That's something I'm just wanting to go, oh, cool, that was a neat picture they got today. I'm not going to go sit there and chat about it. I just want to know real quick between classes or something, or NASA's campus just walking across to a building. But if you're like, oh, I have a group of students, and I have a first grade class, what are we going to do today? And we're in the computer lab, then I'm going to get them all to sit down and we're going to video chat with people and we're going to watch this video together, and we're all going to post our ideas. But those are two completely separate tasks and objectives.
Absolutely. So it depends upon where you are. And
I think
you're
trying to just go,
planning
throw a big social media coverage over everything and be like, we're going to do it all, gives you the mistake of you did nothing well.
Okay.
That's a very good point.
I did a lot of research a while ago on public opinion in the space program and the demographics, and that is what I'm interested in. Not just the groups, but why are there groups in the males, females, Republicans, Democrats, education levels, age levels, all those. There's reasons why, and you have to really tailor things to that. Also, since I started, I've been doing computers for over 30 years, about 35 years now. So I taught the astrophysicists, who were the world-class astrophysicists, could not understand computers because it was just so different to them. And here it was, I didn't even understand at the beginning, but then I related. It was a very different thing to come in and go, God, I hate these computers, and then to get into a job where, man, I'm glad I know something. And then I learned, but I remembered what it felt like to be in that position and not understand something. Because I could tell this guy, his father's listed in the history books too. I could only teach him 2 things a day. Literally, he was great. He was really funny. But to remember, what is it like and what does that person need? So really, and I deal not just like Hispanics because I grew up, wasn't deprived of anything. I don't look Latino to most people, but I relate because that is my heritage. And that's part of what I want to do is address those gaps because, I followed it from the beginning before PC. I'm pre-PC, but because I followed it, I'm not ignorant and I can pick up this stuff, but I understand sometimes how it's harder for other people my age to pick up those things. I'm not stupid, but you got to realize what's going on in those lives. But also the assumption is that people have the money to have these things. And so I am really focused on the groups. Since I can't work with everybody, I have to focus on the groups that people forget, which are the ones that don't have access to all these things, and looking for role models who can really connect on their level what it feels like. So, and it's really hard for people to be able to do those 2 different things. It might be good technically, or they might be good, but you got to have someone who can really bridge both sides.
That's why
which is what Camilla does.
Continue to go to science fairs and be there for the kids, that don't have access to the internet or don't have smartphones. Yes.
We're from the library, and I understand what she's talking about with kids that don't have the technology, because that's what we serve. Started with the Gates computers coming into the libraries for children who don't have internet access. And we just finished we'll talk about it tomorrow, the scavenger hunt using the Eyes on the Solar System website. And it started off as something just, let's do this, and we're going to see. And I was like, oh, nobody's going to want to do this. The teachers are not getting involved. We had about 35 kids that got involved and did this little scavenger hunt thing, and it was really great. We touched probably about 40 children, and it was amazing to see. But to have more content coming in on that public level, having things come in that we can put like on the public access computers to that when somebody's going to sit there, they're going to see it and they're going to understand it at their level, because it's people coming into, majority of our computer use is kids coming in to do their Facebook, Twitter, and their social media connection. That's what we have.
There's a good story for every medium, right? And the thing is, different communities need different stories. So one danger I see kind of coming over the next probably 12 to 18 months is that people are going to start to say, okay, what is the best way to get 50% of the population to be female for this particular Facebook page? There are no recipes for cool, right? So you have to be careful because some things may work sometimes. And sometimes being random and just a really obscure reference somewhere will ignite a whole conversation about something, and it becomes another conversation. So yeah, you can ask us, how would we want to hear it? Well, here's a limited set of people, right? And also, the people that knew to get here is a different kind of group than the group that is currently right now having a sandwich in downtown Houston that has no clue that this is happening. So yeah, you have to strike a balance. It's good to ask us. I mean, because we've got some ideas, but really, it's almost like, how do we ask that question to everybody?
Well, and not only that, it changes. What works today really well in a couple of months might not work at all because the social environment has changed. So we have to learn and adjust quickly, I believe. And we really should try different ways. I'll give you a couple of examples. On January 28th, I was just about to leave the office and I decided, let's take a quick look what the sun looks right now, because we have pretty much a live feed. So I looked and I saw two beautiful eruptions on the sun. One at about 2 o'clock, if you look at a clock, and the other one right across from it at around 7 o'clock. And it was beautiful. So I raced home. I actually took the carpool lane, even though I was by myself, because I wanted to get home and I wanted to update Twitter and Facebook and post real-time images. So we did that with Camilla and the SDO simultaneously. And then I decided, let's get images from other spacecrafts that observed the same thing at the same time. So I pulled the images from SOHO, which is another space mission, and Stereo. And I started posting this, and I noticed people were really getting into it. And for about 2.5 hours, I kept doing this, updating it and showing different views and explaining what's happening. And at the end of the night, I got an email from a physics teacher from the University of Texas saying, this is the very first time that during class I used Facebook and I used little SDO, because right before class I saw the first post and I was so intrigued by it, so we used it in the classroom and we watched the live updates. And I was like, wow, why did I not think of something like that? I thought that was so brilliant. Of course, you cannot predict these events and say, hey, by the way, next week we'll have an amazing solar event. But there are ways we could really incorporate classrooms and teachers more by them having the opportunity to tune into these outlets.
Yes. Two quick things. Back to the video, it occurred to me, I do watch video in the social networking context, but it's stuff that I set aside to watch ahead of time, so like TED Talks is what made me think about it, or video podcasts. Like, of course, NASA has several of those. But there are other, so it depends on the social platform. Like Twitter, I will almost never watch video because I'm usually on a mobile device. Facebook, because Facebook is more of a, at least for me, here's what other people do. I'm not going to usually get entrenched time-wise. But, so like podcasts I think are great because I can download them. And then whenever I have some block of time, I'm like, okay, I feel like watching something, then they're there. But if it's something that's in a stream, then I'm like, I don't have an ability to save, then I'm unlikely to watch video because I'm usually, by definition, I'm not willing to commit the time. The other thing is, as far as platforms, another platform you may want to look at is the Tumblr service, which is becoming increasingly popular, especially with younger people. And it's attractive in that it's similar to Twitter in some ways. There are streams and you follow people, and there's reblogging, which is akin to retweeting, but you're not constrained. It's easy to embed video and graphics. You're not constrained by characters, so you can be a little bit more elaborate. And if it's something that people find interesting, it will spread like wildfire. And it's easy, it's easy to set up, and there's not a lot of overhead. You can often update it from another service that you're already using, like Twitter or Facebook. So it wouldn't require that much more time. But there might be some entries that you would want to, or maybe craft them on Tumblr and then have the links transmitted to the Twitter feed, that feedback. And so it's a little bit richer platform that's becoming really popular.
Tumblr?
Yeah, TUMBLR. Unfortunately, it's fairly unreliable. It's like what Twitter used to be when it had the fail whale. Although the outages are quite a bit shorter, but usually if you refresh once or twice it works. But presumably that will improve. But it does seem like it's really taking off, and if you're interested in accessing younger people, then you may want to consider it too.
I guess one of my concerns has kind of come out in this short conversation is that, well, how many things do I need to monitor? Okay?
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter, now Tumblr. which is the best?
Yeah.
You know,
they're not. That's the issue. Is there's not a best. It's,
Yes, they're different.
Each one specializes in a special medium and a special delivery method, and in turn, a specific audience.
Right.
So you can't just be like, you know, it'd be great. I want to be. If all your objective is to have the hit count at the end of the day be really high,
no,
then you put all the content on all of them, and it's really easy.
No, I'm more interested in content. You know,
yeah.
Because if I have the Facebook and the Twitter, well, will I see the same thing?
You might not.
I may or may not.
And time-wise, it might come on your stream at different times too.
Right,
but we had to
really
accept a long time ago we're not going to see it all.
Yeah. I got to monitor these 3 things.
You won't necessarily. I mean, it's fluid, right? It'll happen, and what'll likely happen is you'll be monitoring Facebook, and somebody will say, "Hey, check out this crazy NASA SDO video through Facebook." And you'll click it, and it'll take you to Tumblr. That's how it'll happen. It kind of starts to self-aggregate.
But then do I have to have a Tumblr account?
Yep.
See, I have all the accounts.
You may. I mean, some of it might be just pages.
You can look at it.
Well, yeah, Tumblr you can view with that.
But I'm just saying, you know, what you're getting to, you know, how many things.
And there are services that try and deal with that problem. Like Friend Feed is one example that tries to deal with that stuff. But I don't know, it's easily get overloaded. Either way.
There are apps for stuff like the iPad that'll put all your Facebook stuff and all your Twitter stuff
Yeah.
on one page.
Oh, yeah, like Flipbook.
I mean, in a sense, you can just ignore everything but the one thing you care about, and it'll be fine. Like if you just follow Twitter,
I think
that'll be fine
Yeah.
for you.
If it's really
just on
news,
Facebook, that'll
it'll
be fine.
hit
You
it
just
at some point.
do whatever works that gets you the information you're interested in.
As a viewer, it's your own choice. You're probably going to get everything you want with like 2, maybe 3 services. On the other side, is someone putting it out. That's where it gets complicated. Because then you're like, there's 15 social media outlets. I don't have time to update 15 streams, or I'm just like, well, I'll just have this link to this link to this. Well, was there a real point of having a Tumblr if all it's doing is taking my tweets and my Facebook updates and posting it to Tumblr? Well, it just seemed like a kind of big waste of time. Because you're not utilizing any of them then to their sufficient use for the demographic or the objective.
I think it's a natural flow. I mean, MySpace was huge, okay? Dead. It's the last time you checked your MySpace page, right? I haven't checked mine in years, okay? Facebook, I mean, when I tried to get on Facebook the first time, I couldn't because I no longer had a college email account, okay? And now Twitter. I mean, certainly there's always going to be 1 or 2 that ride in that top spot, and that's going to be where you're going to focus what you're doing because you're trying to reach people. Ultimately, you're trying to reach people, and so you got to focus on those. Will Tumblr come up and meet with those? We don't know. May not. It may. It may be the new Twitter.
I think I want to go back to what is the audience. I haven't seen Camilla. It's the first time I'd ever heard her, but. So she tweets, I mean, she's out there, the face, and she translates the science, the technical part, which I think is great because in a sense, it really, you don't really need to get into all those differences in demographics because she's not human. I think number 1, she's not human, so it's easier for people to get into that perspective.
I think some people might argue with you on that one.
Well, human in physical form is no. I mean, I'm just talking about physical form because then people can put themselves in that position. But what I want to ask is, are you interested? I mean, you can be interested in both. Just translating the technical, or do you also want them to envision themselves as the people that do this work to get all sorts? And I want to try to keep it generic, not say children, all groups, to say, because that's the problem with a lot of these things. People can't envision themselves doing that or understanding that, and if they can't relate to it on that level,
there's a mythos surrounding the people that do this, that if you work with them, they're
right,
really
they're so
like
used to it and can talk and don't understand why you can't get into it. But really, trying to get into, can I envision myself? Because I mean, I meet all sorts of people and they can't envision themselves doing, well, I'm just an ordinary person. But they can't, but you have to break it down to it because they're not me and their perspective is different. I'm an ordinary person. You can do this, and I related to some aspects of the space shuttle that were made by sewing machines. So you have to really sometimes get down to something they have in their everyday life, some aspect of it. that they can say, because then you've made a connection. And that's part of what I had read about computers. People can't understand them because they feel closer to cars and lawnmowers because they understand something about motors. Motors run things. They don't know the technical, but computers are a box with things. So.
But they understand it on a very vague level. I don't know how many people really understand how a lawnmower
That's
works.
what I just said. I just said that. They just know that there's motors and gas, but they've used it. They use it. But they understand that it's motors and stuff, so they can understand those. They don't have to get into all the details. But computers are totally a box, glass, so there's a difference there, but that's the thing. Something that people can relate to in their everyday life. They don't have to get into all the details.
And that's exactly the beauty of having Camilla. Because
Right,
Camilla
exactly.
can go on an ice rink and play hockey, and we can tie it back to NASA.
Yeah, okay.
Did you know that?
No, see, I didn't hear about her till today. That's why I was asking that question, presenting it.
We want
that
to send Camilla to places and then try to tie it back to NASA. And fortunately, there are so many areas that have something to do with NASA. So, on the hockey one, hockey sticks are made of material that were developed at NASA, for example. The Stanley Cup went down to KSC a few years when Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup, which is, the Super Bowl trophy for hockey. And hockey is that thing that play with sticks in a pub. It sounds popular here. And so we can always tie this together. And that's the beauty with Camilla. You can't really take an astronaut and put him on an ice ring and say, okay, tie it to.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's the beauty of having something like that.
Right. No, I agree with that.
And to answer your question, what I envision is that somebody looks at a Camilla tweet and says, is she sitting in a space shuttle? Why is she sitting in a space shuttle? What is a space shuttle? Why is she sitting in that seat? And starts researching and learning about it. That would be the ultimate.
Right. Gee, can I do that? What would it feel like for me? And really, it's a felt experience. When somebody has a felt experience, it's really powerful.
Clay Anderson took Camilla and he got her stuck on the space potty. Some people hated it, but it was the best because it was an interesting intro into how does the space potty work?
Right.
How do we pee up there? It's beautiful. So you can't really have an astronaut sit on the space potty and then you want to learn about it. It's like, gross.
But see, that gets people into.
Y'all should see inside that rack. There was so much stuff crammed inside that rack.
But everybody does that, so they can relate to that.
The one thing I like about Camilla is that bird has helped me accomplish a lot. Like, I really wasn't an outgoing person when it first started, and Susan knows. And if you knew what that bird accomplished for me yesterday, you would be thinking twice about it. But I would also like to share a point. You mentioned about Camilla reaching out to specific demographics, and I've had Camilla a couple of times for weeks at a time. I've had Fuzz for a while as well, and being 25 years old, the one thing I love about these things again is I can act like a 5 or 6 year old when I have them, and no one's gonna question me because all I gotta say is she's NASA's mascot, and they're like, that's the most coolest thing I've ever seen.
Right, but it also opens up your mind as a child, which is what happens when we lose the ability. We're taught. The mind closes up. We have to do things a certain way, and the key thing for all human beings is to retain that element throughout life, of that sense of wonder and curiosity.
Let me tell you something I was thinking about, and we tried it with Sarah. Usually, I'm very protective about Camilla because I have to be careful. She can't be in situations where we could get into trouble, like drinking alcohol and stuff like that. After all, she could be a role model. But we tried a couple of things, and we sent Camilla to Sarah because she had some really fun events coming up, and I wanted to see how it works. How does it work when other people take over for a few days and incorporate her into their lives? Because here's another thing. If I can send Camilla to you because I know you have something really cool to do, it gets you maybe more into it, and then you start thinking about, okay, how can I describe this so I understand it? And I can leverage off of the knowledge she has, and I don't have anything to do with it. That's a cool thing. So I would like to incorporate that more and more, and it becomes like citizen science in a way, because you're now responsible for the content. Now, let me ask you this. If I were to say, okay, I have a sign-up sheet, would you be interested in picking Camilla? Who would, just out of curiosity, who would say, oh, absolutely?
I'll take.
Mine too.
I'll take crawfish.
See, it's awesome. I mean, look, we have six people. I would have expected one or two to say, yeah, that's something we want to discover a little bit more, because that gets you more involved.
From her perspective.
From her perspective.
So you have to, yeah, it's really cool to change your own mindset.
Exactly.
And
yes.
And that kind of idea is similar to something that my niece's school class did about geography with like Platt Stanley kind of things. So you send it out across the country to friends or family and get the personal experience from that person in whatever situation it is, send it back to the kids or whoever, and they had it delivered to them in a very personal manner.
Exactly. Now we're talking about social, and now it becomes really social, and that's what I envision. And you can't do this with a lot of NASA missions because not everyone A has a mascot and B is willing to go that far. But I think if we could have a circle of people that say, you know what, I want to do something because I have an interesting job that somehow relates to NASA. I would love to send Camilla and say, here she is. Your job is A, you're going to take pictures, and you're going to explain what it is that we see there. I don't want people to go around and go into the forest and say, all right, here's a picture of Camilla in front of a tree. That doesn't help. You all do stuff in your daily lives that to you is of importance and to a lot of other people is of importance. And we should share that. And if we can tie it together to space exploration, I mean, that would be the most brilliant thing, in my opinion.
The other thing with that, too, is that you could go the opposite way, right? Who of you that have signed up have nothing to do with NASA?
Absolutely.
This is your opportunity to end up at the VAB or in at JPL. I mean, how many of us like look on Ustream just to watch the rover move like half a foot, and then when it does, it's like yeah, and you're standing there watching it for an. I mean, I have work to do, and my second screen.
That's what second screens are for.
Right. Like just going back and forth, and I'm like. Oh my god, and I'm passing it back and forth. But if I could be in the room, you know, if you could be actually in the room, and the only key you need is to have a rubber chicken in your hand to get into that room, that changes the equation.
Your VIP entry, very important poultry.
Yeah,
I love it.
It works.
Yeah, it does work. Seriously, the invitation Camilla gets, we're short of the White House, but she hasn't passed it.
Well, have you asked?
Not yet.
Right? I mean...
Yeah, but... So, some really great ideas. I'm really glad that there's such an interest in doing that. Yes?
And I mean, you can also get ideas from the public, like the Sun, Earth, and Moon thing. You guys didn't even realize you had it covered. So for like Sun and Earth Day and, you know... Yuri's Night, you had Sky Blue Earth, Buzz Aldrin Moon, and Camilla SDO Sun, and you can all tie them together without even realizing it. It's cool.
What we created is now really taking off. So we have Camilla here, we have Buzz Aldrin there. Buzz Aldrin is with a non-profit organization, Bears on Patrol. Blake is the director of the organization. They provide teddy bears to police departments. So when they go out on a call involving small children, they have teddy bears to give out to the kids and help them in a tough situation, make it more bearable. I love that play of words, by the way. Sky Blue just was created by the AIAA, which is the American Institute for Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Oh, kids are flying. Oh, crap.
And more NASA missions are adopting. JSC got Luna, a horse, very recently. And so it is catching on. In fact, it's catching on so big that one of the next NASA PM challenges, they're going to have a whole topic dedicated to mascots and education and public outreach. It's amazing that it has gone this far. We had never expected it, and I think there's so much more we can do, but I really want to find ways that we can get you all more involved and everyone else so that you feel you're part of it. Because once you feel more part of it, then you become attached.
What if it takes a rubber chicken to put a human face on NASA?
He's writing it down.
Yeah. Tweet this out. Of course, there are other things that do that too, but wow. Dennis, you had something.
Have you considered, okay, so you want it to be a verifiable source, you want it to be someone that people are going to trust, but there's also the edutainment aspect, right? Like how many of us are really like hardcore space people, or at least that's our thing, that's our kick, right? But what about the people that aren't? There are actually, like, I've seen some really great tweets by celebrities. And that's another tie-in too, right? Like, would this celebrity be willing to not be a celebrity and be this chicken, right? It totally changes the equation for them. And now suddenly you've got this celebrity that people are looking at for completely different reasons, connecting it to a rubber chicken. Like, and it's just, you'll push that group towards something they never even thought that they'd ever be looking at. And you have to be able to pick the celebrities carefully. I mean, but you'll see who's tweeting about NASA SDO, and it's great because I get messages all the time like, oh my God, can you believe so and so is actually interested in this? And yeah, they're people. They're people too.
The internet would like to add that NASA has tried to use celebrities in the past on NASA TV, but no one watches NASA TV.
Yeah, right.
Well, I can't get it.
That's a whole other NASA TV
website.
Yeah, you've got it.
Gotta pay extra
I've had that
too.
discussion with Rob Nagus over and over and over. There's just the budget's not there.
Even though
They
the
can't do
website-
any more work. It's a wasted resource.
They could ask us. I'd be willing to help them out volunteer-wise.
It's weird though, because NASA TV has all these things that it has added to it that it doesn't use.
We can leverage on that.
Like, they have money available that they don't use either.
Wow,
they have partnerships.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I
That
think
they just
we're
don't really
out of
leverage.
time, and
Because it's a congressional mandate to have.
please follow Camilla. Please follow
Yeah.
us.
And
Please
so
follow
they,
this guy.
there's little ties
Get
that they can go
engaged.
get for
Follow all the
stuff.
NASA
Does
missions.
Sky have a Twitter account yet?
I'm working, or AIAA is working on it.
Okay.
So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.